Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video in my tutorial series on how to build a multifunctional, object-oriented Discord bot in Python. So up till now, we've finished 3 out of the 4 sections of the profile that we're making, and today we're going to work on images. And I actually have a demonstration here for you of what it's going to look like, what our finished product is going to be. So let's take a look. So here's the status message for our images. It looks a little bit different than previous status messages because of these arrows, basically. And we're just indicating which image is which here. Okay, and now you'll notice that the buttons at the bottom are grayed out because we have no images to remove or view here in this. So let's go ahead and add one. So we can go add an image, and I'm going to add an additional image. Okay, and we'll just pop up the, let's see here, we'll just grab this one. Okay, and then it's going to prompt me to put in a caption for my additional image, so looking good. And then it saves the image and sends us a new status message with the updated images on it. Okay, and then when we view additional images, we actually get a paginator that will allow us to page through the additional images field like that. Okay, and then we can also edit our caption, remove the image, or go back to viewing our image status embed like that. Okay, and then if we remove it, we get a confirmation. Hey, just make sure that you want to remove. And then when we confirm that, it actually deletes the previous message and sends us a new paginator, and that's going to have the updated images, which in this case is none. Okay, so that's a quick demonstration of what we're going to be doing in this tutorial video. I think the best way to learn about it is to get started. So here we go. Alrighty, so back in our IDE, let's go ahead and go into our profiles package, and we're going to make a new Python file called images. Okay, and let's start with our typical imports. So from future, import annotations. From Discord, let's go ahead and import interaction. From typing, we're going to import type checking. And then if we're type checking, we need to import a reference to the profile. So from .profile, import profile like that. Okay, very cool. And then next up, we can define under all so we don't forget. So let's say like right here. And the class we're going to make is called profile images. So let's just drop that name in here now. Okay, and now we'll build the class. So it's going to be called profile images, as I said. And this is going to be a profile section, which we need to import up here. So let's do that. From .section, import profile section, like that. And we'll drop that here into the class. And then first off, we can define our slots. So let's do that. And into our slots, we're only going to have 3 attributes to this class. Okay, so we're going to have a thumbnail, which the underlying data point is going to be private, so we use an underscore. Main image, which is also going to be private, so we need an underscore. And then additional, which is not going to be private. And remember, when you add an underscore, it marks it as quote unquote private, but you can still access these variables from anywhere you can access the profile images class. There's nothing restricting you from accessing these. We just put the underscore to indicate that this is something intended to be used internally only. And that's why we create the properties to expose these things, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Let's define our init. And then into this, we're going to take the parent, which is a profile, the args, and the keyword args, just like we always do. Okay, so let's pass in the parent to the superclass, along with our args and keyword args. And then let's go ahead and set up our attributes. So self.thumbnail is going to be an optional string. So ultimately, we're going to be storing the URL for the thumbnail. And let's import optional up here from typing. Okay, and then this is going to be equal to keyword args.pop thumbnail or none. Okay. Let's also define the main image, which is also going to be an optional string, and it's going to be equal to keyword args.pop main image and none. Okay, and then finally we're going to say self.additional, which is going to be a list of additional image, which we're going to make this class in a minute, but ultimately this is just going to be a data class that stores information about each additional image. Okay, but we're going to set that up in a minute. For now, let's say keyword args.pop additional or an empty list. Okay, because remember, we always want to have a list here. This is not optional. It can be empty, but not a none value. Okay, so let's import list from typing. And then let's define our additional image class as well. So right up here above profile images and below Dunder all, let's say class additional image, and this is just going to be a plain Python class, and we can define our slots here, and this is going to take 3 attributes as well. So we're going to have an image ID, we're going to have the URL to the image, and we're also going to have a caption. But since the caption is going to be settable, it's going to be alterable, we're going to make the underlying data point private and then expose it with a property. Okay? And let's define our init before we forget. So def init, and then into this, I'm going to make all of these keyword arguments by placing an asterisk beforehand. And we're going to need the image ID, which is going to be a string. It's going to be a UUID, just like we made for the profiles. We'll need the URL, which is also going to be a string, and neither of these parameters is optional, okay? And then we have the caption, which could be an optional string, and we'll set that equal to none in case the user doesn't set anything. Okay, and let's just go ahead and create our attributes. So self.id is going to be a string, and that's equal to the image ID. Self.url, also a string, equal to the URL. And then self.caption is an optional string equal to caption. Okay, pretty straightforward in it. This is, like I said, just a data class. It's not going to be doing too much other than storing stuff. Okay, and we'll come back to this for some additional functionality later, but now we've got our attributes that we can access from within profile images to build in here. Okay? Now, next up, let's go ahead and open our database file from within utilities, and we're going to make a new table for our images and also a table for our additional images, and you'll see how we deal with this in a minute. But since the user is going to be able to enter a variable number of additional images, up to 10, we need a separate place to store that because we don't want to have a table with, 20 additional columns and, half of them aren't being used. We want to have a table where we store each data point and map that data point to an ID number. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's create the table for images first, okay? So we're going to say c.execute, create table if not exists, and we can say, what are we calling it? Images, that's right. Images, open parenthesis, and we're going to say profile ID is the first field, profile ID, it's text, unique, and not null. Okay, we have the thumbnail, which is text, main image, which is also text. We need commas after these. There we go. And that's all we need in the images, actually. So we're going to put constraint images underscore p key, primary key, and then we're going to put profile ID in parentheses and close off both sets and spell thumbnail correctly. Okay, so there's our images table. That's pretty straightforward. Let's drop down here and also make an additional images table. So create table if not exists. And I'm going to abbreviate additional because it could get a little long. So we're going to say ADDL images. Okay, open parenthesis. First thing we're going to do is get the profile ID that the image belongs to. and then this is going to be text, but it's not going to be unique. Okay, and it's not going to be unique because we could have multiple images pertaining to the same profile, which is why we're going to give it an image ID as well. And this is going to be text, unique, and not null. Okay, and then we're going to have a URL field, which is text, and a caption field, which is also text. Okay, and then we're going to say constraint addl images underscore p key, primary key, and that's equal to image ID this time, not the profile ID. Okay, and then close off both sets of parentheses. Great. So let's drop down here into our profile master view, and then we're also going to add the images that we want to pull. So I'm just going to abbreviate images as I, and we're going to say I.thumbnail and I.mainImage. Okay, and no comma after the main image, as well as a space before the from clause. Okay, let's drop down here from the last join clause, make sure we add a space afterward, and we'll add a join clause for our images table. So join images I on p.profileid equals I.profileid. Okay? So this is going to return now our thumbnail and our main image in addition to the rest of the data. Okay, and I'm just going to copy this comment here, paste it there, and this is going to be data indices 21 through 22. And they are images. Okay, so let's also go down here to our new profile entry, and we're going to create an entry in the images table. So c.execute insert into images profile ID values %s. Okay, and then for that we're going to say new profile ID and make that into a tuple. Great. So now we can create a record of our images in the profile tables. Okay. Now let's close out of our database, and back here in our images class, let's go ahead and add the database, the load and save logic. Okay. So right here we'll start with load, and that's going to be a class method, def load, and we can auto complete it. And let's go ahead and import type and typevar from typing. So typevar, and we'll create our profile images type variable right here under all. So pi equals type variable, pi in quotes as the first parameter, and bound equals profile images as the second parameter. Okay, just like that. And let's sub it in here for the class as well as here for the return. Okay, now our data is going to be a tuple of optional string and optional string because it's only going to be the thumbnail and the main image. We're going to be dealing with the additional images a little bit differently, so hang tight on that. But for the time being, our profile images class is only going to deal with the thumbnail and the main image. Okay, just like that. So let's import tuple up here from typing. Okay, and let's write our load logic. So ultimately, we're getting in the values that we want in the thumbnail and main image here, right? But we haven't done any querying for our additional images. And that's actually the way that I want it, because we're going to do a database request for all of the additional image information at once and then drop each one into its appropriate profile. Okay, because we don't want to make a query for each profile and then grab that data and parse it, because that's going to be really slow. Okay, we want to make one query, grab it all at once, and then use our code to sort it. All right, so for this class method, we can actually just return the class with the data dropped in. So let's return class, and the parent is equal to parent thumbnail equals data sub 0, main image equals data sub 1, and additional is actually going to equal an empty list for now. And you'll see why we do this momentarily, but just keep in mind that additional images are going to be a separate step in and of themselves. Okay, so it's going to be blank for a little while. Let's also add our update function. So def update, and then we're going to need access to the database connection, right? So let's import utilities up here from utilities, and we'll import star since we're going to need a number of those functions. And here, let's say c equals dbconnection.cursor, and this is within our update function. And then let's say c.execute. And this is going to be a really simple SQL statement, okay? So update images, set thumbnail equal to %s, main image equal to %s, where profile ID equals %s. Okay, pretty straightforward query here. And let's drop down and create a tuple with our values to format in. So self.thumbnail, the underlying data point, self.mainImage, also underlying data point, and self.parent, self.parent.id. Okay? And below that, let's say dbconnection.commit and c.close to clean up. Okay, so that's our update logic. And now we're going to make some properties to expose our thumbnail and main images. Okay, so let's make a couple of these right here. And we're going to say property. And this will be the thumbnail returning an optional string. And as we've said before, we're going to return self.thumbnail or ns. Okay, and then we'll create the setter as well. So at thumbnail.setter, def thumbnail. It's going to take in a value, which could be an optional string with no return. And we'll say self.thumbnail equals value, and of course self.update to make sure the database gets updated. Cool. And let's do the same step for our main image. Okay, hopefully this should be pretty familiar to you by now. Def main image. This is going to return an optional string. Return self.mainImage or ns. And honestly, I'm just going to copy this here and sub in main image like that. Easy. Okay. And that should do it. Okay. So now we've got our, oh, nope, that won't do it. There. Now that'll do it. Okay. The dangers implicit within copying and pasting in your code. Always make sure if you copy and paste, you have the right values. Now, what are the other functions that we have in our profile section class? Okay, so we've got a set function and a status function that still haven't been implemented. Okay, we'll get to the set function in a minute, but let's define our status message and see how that goes. So right here under load, we're going to say def status, and let's make sure we import embed from Discord. And we're also going to need embed field, so we may as well import that now. Okay. So for our status message, I want to just flat out define the fields that we're going to be using. Now let's take a look back over here at Discord. And if I type in the command again, you can see that we have an additional images field here. And we have a couple of fields down here. And if you notice that right there, it's highlighting an empty field, a hidden field that we've created in order to make the formatting do what we want. Okay, so we're being a little hacky with our images, but the product is good, so that's okay. All right, so this is the format that we're going to be using for our status message. So here I want to say fields equals a list, and we'll even type it. We're going to say list of embed field. And then the first thing I want to do is make an embed field that's a separator, because if we look back here at Discord, we've got a separator, and then our additional images field, and then another separator. Okay? So let's go back to the code, and we'll say embed field, and let's make an F string here for the name. Actually, we don't need an F string. We can just drop in draw separator. And for the value, I want to put an extra value of 30. Okay, now the issue here is that an embed field needs to have a title value and a body value. But we don't have anything to put in the body. Right over here on our message, it's literally just this separator. So what I'm going to do for the body is I'm going to put 2 asterisks, in quotes, 2 asterisks, a space, and 2 asterisks. So we've essentially created a bold white space, and that is okay by Discord. If you were to put a blank string, Discord would throw that back and say, no, you need to have a value here. But Discord can interpret a bolded white space as a value. So that's kind of a dummy value that I like to use in my embed fields if necessary. Okay? And then this won't be inline. This will be its own row. All right, I'm going to copy this down. And here below it, I want to put to do additional images section. Okay, we'll come back to that once we've defined our additional images a bit further. But for now, we're just going to put a to do and have our 2 separators here. All right, next up is our main image field. Okay, so if we look back here at Discord, we've got this field here, and this one here. So that's the 3 fields that we've defined so far. Right, and now we have this main image field. We've got 3 inline fields here, one of which is hidden. Okay, so let's define our main image field first. We'll say name equals main image with 2 underscores on either side. And for the value, well, I want to put arrows, right? So if we were to put bot emojis dot down arrow dot value 3 times like we have it here, that would get a little bit long. So I'm going to make a local variable here above, and it's just going to be called down arrow. And this is going to be equal to bot emojis, which we haven't imported yet. So let's jump back up to the top, and above utilities, we're going to import assets, and we'll import star from that. Okay, so bot emojis is now not squigglied, and we're going to say dot arrow down, which we haven't defined yet. And then we want the value of it, because remember, this is an enum value, and we want the actual value that's assigned to that enum. Okay, so let's open up our emojis. And here above arrow left, I'm going to say arrow down equals partial emoji dot from string, and we'll use the emoji picker, which is Windows period, Windows key period, and we'll pick the arrow down. Okay, I'm also going to want an arrow right, so let's define that as well. Arrow right equals partial emoji dot from string, and we'll do a right arrow there. Okay, cool. So these are the 2 emojis that we're going to need in our images class for now, so we can exit out of that. And as you can see, the squiggly went away. So let's duplicate that, and let's say right arrow. Okay? And that's going to make it a little bit shorter, okay, when we import our values. So let's make the value for our main image field an F string, and it'll start with a hyphen. And then we're going to drop in down arrow, another down arrow, and a third down arrow with another hyphen at the end. Okay, much, much shorter than saying bot emojis.arrowdown.value. Actually, the naming convention's naughty. Let's make this Pythonic. Okay, so down arrow like that. And right arrow is going to be the same way. Must be Pythonic. Okay, so this is going to be inline. This is going to be true because we want these next 3 fields to appear next to one another. Okay, so let's drop down here. And now we need to create the blank field. Okay, so we need to create this guy here in the middle that you can see that I've kind of highlighted. Okay, so remember, if we want a dummy value, we just use a bolded white space. So in here, I can say bolded white space for the title, bolded white space for the value, and then true for the inline. Alrighty? And then I'm going to copy this embed field here. I'm going to drop down and we're just going to say thumbnail for the title. And for the arrow, we'll change these out for right arrow. Okay, otherwise everything can stay the same. It's still inline. We still want these hyphens there. And then finally, let's go ahead and return the embed, the status embed. So we'll return make embed. The color is going to be equal to self.parent.color, just to give it that little personalized touch. Title is going to be equal to an F string of image details for, in tick marks, self.parent.carename. Okay? Then under this, we're going to put the description. And the description is a little sizable, so honestly, I'm going to copy it from here and add in the formatting as needed. Okay, so we're going to go like that. Open parentheses, and we'll paste this. Nope, that was a nightmare. Let's not do that. We'll just type it in. The buttons below allow you to remove an image attached to your profile. And let's put a new line. Or to view a paginated list of your current additional images. Okay, double new line. And it will make this bold and italicized. So this is going to be 3 asterisks. To change your thumbnail and main image assets, or to add an additional image, new line, to your profile, use the between tick marks / profiles add _ image command, and then 3 asterisks to close the bold italics. Okay, we can come back here later, and once we've registered a global command with our bot, because remember, we're only in our testing guild right now. So once we've registered global commands, we can come back here and replace this with a proper command mention, which will allow the user to actually click on this text and invoke the command. Okay, so this is our description. Let's say that we want the thumbnail image to be self.thumbnail, self._thumbnail, or bot images, which we haven't defined the image we want to use yet, but we're going to say .thumb missing .value. Value. Okay, and then for our image URL, image, oh my goodness, image URL is going to be self.mainImage or bot images .mainImageMissing.value. Okay, so let's define these 2 images. I personally just grabbed 2 random picture missing images from the internet. So you can grab the ones that I have, or you can go find your own, whatever works. But we're going to define main image missing equals this image here. And remember, I know we went over this a couple of tutorials ago, but remember to always have a resource server, okay? So this is a server that you can go into. You can, this is my test account, can't see it, but this is where you want to store your emojis. This is where you want to store your images. Everything that you need a hard link to in your bot should get stored in a resource server. Like, for instance, here's my thumbnail missing image. Okay, so I can actually just copy this link and I can paste it back in here under thumbnail missing. Okay, and this is the benefit of having a resource server, is that these images will always have a reference. Okay, and we're going to be using the image void in a minute. This is where the bot is going to save the images that the user submits, right? Because we can't store them within the bot, because once the life cycle of the bot is done, if we restart, it's going to yeet all of those images, and we don't want that. So we need a hard link to them here in our resource server. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. All right, so this is what we need to add to our bot images, and we can exit out of that file for now. Let's call that thumbnail missing like it is. Okay, and then the last thing we need to add to this embed is the timestamp, and we don't want that, so we'll set that to false. Then here under the timestamp, I said that was the last thing, but I lied. We also need to define our fields, which is going to be equal to the fields that we created up here. Okay, so just for visualization, let's get rid of this to do additional images section, and we're just going to say embed field, additional images, and we'll say string of ns for the value. And will not be inline. We need a comma. Okay. So we'll just put this dummy in here for now. We'll say to do, remove this. Okay. And so let's work our way backwards through the command. The next thing we need to do to actually view this status message is create the set function for our profile section, right? So async def set, like that. And then here the embed equals self.status. The view, which we haven't defined yet, is going to be an image status view, but we're going to leave that blank for now. And then we'll say await interaction dot response dot send message. Embed equals embed. And then we want to await view dot wait, but we haven't made our view yet, so don't worry about that. So actually we just need these two statements for the time being. All right, now let's jump into our cog, and we'll make a new command at profiles.command. The name is going to be equal to images, and the description equals view or remove your thumbnail and main images. Thumbnail, main image. I should really pay attention to my notes when I'm typing things, main image, or additional images, like that. Okay, so for the function name, let's say async def profiles, profile images. And this is going to take in a CTX like it always does, with no return. Okay, and like we usually do, let's just copy this logic from above and paste it in here. And we'll say images instead of at a glance. Okay, super easy. So as usual, I did get a little bit ahead of myself. Let's make sure that we go back and wire in the images section into our profile class. Okay, that's kind of important. If we tried to run the command, we would get an error because right now our profile has no images. Okay, so let's go into our profile class and wire that up now. Okay, so we've already got images under slots, so we can just add a parameter here to the init. So images, which is going to be a profile images, which we don't have imported. So let's go up here and do that. And it looks like from classes.profiles, which means we need to go into our init file for the profiles package under classes, and we need to add our images to these imports. Okay, so from .images, import star, and now we have a bot images, profile images, excuse me. Okay, cool. So let's also add an attribute, self.images, which is the profile images, equal images. And then we're going to do the same thing that we've done here in the new method by just creating self.images equal to profile images and just passing the self to the constructor. Okay, that one's easy. Now let's go down here to our load class method, okay? So if we open up the database file just for reference, we have our data indices here. So the data indices for at a glance go through 20. Okay, so let's jump over and let's put that in here. And remember, it needs to be exclusive. So it needs to be 21. So it goes up to 20, up through 20 then, excuse me. Okay, and then we can say self.images equals profile images.load, self for the parent, and then there's only 2 data points for our images, right? 21 and 22. Easy. Okay. So let's say 21 through 23 so that we're exclusive. Okay, but we haven't defined our load class method yet. So let's do that. Oh no, I've just mistyped it. Excuse me, I missed the typing on it. So let's go back here to images. And into load, let's actually change this to a list. That's my fault. And we only need one optional string in that list. Okay, cool. So that was my fault. So just to confirm, in the load class method in our profile images, our data is actually a list of optional string. Okay, I was mistaken with the tuple. So apologies for that. And now our squiggly's gone. Great. Okay, so let's open up Discord. Let's go ahead and run our bot. Excellent, no errors. Doing good so far. Let's open up Discord and run our command. Make sure the status message is coming up properly. Hey, there we go. And that looks pretty good, honestly. Okay, so now we can start writing the set methods, the functions that are actually going to set and edit the images as needed. Okay? So let's minimize this, and we can stop our bot for now. And in order to do that, we're going to need to go back to our profiles cog, and we're going to define one more command. And this is going to be the command that the user invokes to actually change or upload a file. Okay, so this is going to be at profiles.command. The name is going to be add image. And then for the description, let's go ahead and put, let's say add a thumbnail, main image, or additional image to your profile. Okay, and we'll define the function async def profile add image. It's going to, let's drop this down because we're going to do something different this time. And what we're going to do is we're going to utilize the type hinting system to actually define the classes that we're going to pass into this field. Excuse me, this slash command field. Okay, so under here, the first thing we take in anytime with a command is the CTX. Okay, that's always going to get passed in immediately as the first parameter, so we need to plan for that. Now for the second one, what I want to do is I want to say section. Okay, and this is where we're going to define the options and option choices for which section the user is uploading this image for. Now you'll see as we go what I mean, but for the type hinting, I actually want to pass option, and we're going to put parentheses so that we can instantiate it. Okay, so let's go up here to the top, and we need to import option and option choice from Discord. Okay, and so let's go back down. And within our option constructor, we need to name this, let's say field. And the description is going to be which profile field you want to set with the provided image. And then our choices, well, that's going to be an open list. Okay, and we're going to make our option choices directly here inside this list. So I'm going to put an option choice, and the first thing we're going to do is put the name. And since we don't want to hard code values in our code, we want to be as dynamic as possible, I'm going to use the section type enum and the proper name property of that enum in order to get the name of the option choice. Okay, so we're going to say section type, which we haven't imported yet. So before we forget, let's go to the top. And from utilities, we'll import section type like that. Now we can say section type dot thumbnail dot proper name. And it looks like we haven't defined our thumbnail yet. So let's go into our section type, and under here, let's put our 3 image categories. Okay, so thumbnail equals 5, main image equals 6, additional image equals 7. Okay, and let's also change proper name to reflect the proper name of main image and additional images. Okay, So elif self.value, oh my, self.value equals 5 equals 6, because we can just return the word thumbnail if that's the case. So if it equals 6, we want to return main image with a space in between. And then elif self.value equals 7. We're going to say return additional image singular. And you'll see why we do this, but there are more instances in which we need the singular term for that field instead of additional images, the name of the field itself. Okay, so we're just going to return a singular additional image as the string. Okay, so we can close our enum, and let's go back, and our squiggly is gone now for the section type. So let's drop down and let's define the value of this option choice, because ultimately what's happening here is Discord is recording the value of whatever option choice the user has selected, and they're sending that value back to us for processing. Okay, so the easiest way that we can do this is we can say a string of section type dot thumbnail dot value, which is the numerical value, just like that. But we have a squiggly. What's going on with that? Well, because this is type hinting, ultimately my IDE and probably your IDE is expecting type hints, which generally use square brackets, right? So if we go into our images and we look at our data, notice how instead of parentheses, this uses square brackets to indicate the typing. Okay, so that's what it's looking for here, but it's like, no, you can't do that. Except the way that PyChord interprets option choices and options in the annotations means that we can do that. This is perfectly good. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop in a type ignore here, and it'll go away. Very cool. But that's why we're putting the type ignore, is because this is completely valid. Our IDE just expects type hinting syntax, even though we can use this. Okay, so let's add another option choice, and this is going to be for the main image. So name is section type dot main image dot proper name, and the value is the string value of section type dot main image dot value. Okay, and let's also drop in a type ignore. And lastly, we're going to do the additional image. Okay, additional images, excuse me. So option choice name equals section type dot additional image. Come on now, additional image dot proper name. Value equals the string value of section type dot additional image dot value, and drop in a type ignore. Okay, now let's also come down here outside the choices list, and let's say required is equal to true. Okay, we need to know what section the user is inputting this image for. Okay, so let's then go down here after section, and we'll put a comma, obviously, and we'll put an additional parameter here called file, and this will be an option. And the first thing I want to do, we didn't have to do it up here because these are string value option choices, but for this one we need to put a slash command type, which, I don't know how I got in there. So let's go up to the top and let's import slash command option type. Okay, and the reason we're doing this is because now we can say slash command option type dot attachment, and this will create a field for the user to input an attachment. Okay, obviously. So let's say the name is equal to file, the description is equal to the image file to set in the specified field, and this is going to be required. Obviously, we don't want them submitting a non-file. That would defeat the purpose. Okay, so there's one more thing we need to do before we write the body of this, and that is to go up here to the top and delete from future import annotations. Now, why are we doing that? That's like the key. That's one of the key imports that we do in every module. Well, the way that the annotations module reads our type hinting, this would not work. And this is very important. I think that it's significantly more difficult to build options and option choices within your code instead of defining them directly within the annotation of the function. Okay? So in order to get this to work, we need to delete from future import annotations. But the issue is that any of our type checked classes, so anything that we've imported but not directly imported, we're going to need to surround those with quotes, because that's just how the type hinting works when you don't import the annotations module. Okay, so I'm just going to go through and I'm going to add quotes around Frogbot wherever we have that. Luckily, it's only 3 spots. So 1 in the setup and then 2 up here in the initializer for the cog. Okay, so that's all you need to do there. And now we can write the function body here. And this is going to be relatively straightforward like before. So the first 2 items are always the same. We want to grab the guild and we want to grab the user's profile, right? Easy. But now I want to say await profile.images.handleImage. Okay, now this is a little bit different than our normal set function because we've got some options here that indicate which section our image is going to be sent to. Okay, and so we need to handle that within our images class. We need to pass in the section type, and then the handle image function is going to deal with calling the proper set function within the class. Okay, so into this we always need to pass the interaction, and then what I want to do is I want to pass in a section type of the integer value of the section that we've gotten back, okay, because these option choices will return string values. So let's just convert that to an integer and drop it directly into a section type. Easy enough. Okay, and then after section type, where's that other parenthesis? Okay, there we go. So after section type, let's also put in the file that we want to upload. Okay, so this is all that we need for our cog. Remember, we like to keep our cog commands as slim as possible and do all the logic within the called class. Very cool. So next up, let's get rid of this squiggly. All right, so we can go into our images class and let's make a handle image function right here below set. How's that? Okay, and we'll get to the view for the set function here in a little bit once we start working on the UI elements, but I like to separate those out into later parts of the tutorial just because I want to get the logic within the class solid so we don't have to worry about that while building our UI elements. Okay, so we'll come back to creating the view for this in a little bit. Okay, so this will be an async function and we want to define handle image. Okay, and this is going to take in the interaction. This is going to take in a section, which is a section type. And it'll take in an image, which is an attachment. Okay, so let's import that from Discord really quickly here. Okay, cool. So the first thing we need to check is what kind of file this is, because users, they could upload a variety of things that aren't images, right? And we need to plan for that. So if image.content type is not in, and let's drop down here, we're going to open parentheses so we can create a tuple. And I want to say image\JPEG, and these are all image types that Discord will allow us to send and it can handle. Okay, we don't want to send like any kind of bizarre image types to Discord because we're not sure if it can handle it and we don't want to try it. So we can say image/ping, PNG, image/GIF, image/aping, and image/WebP. Okay, so these are the image types that we're going to allow the user to submit. Okay, so if it's not in here, I want to instantiate an error. And this error is going to be called invalid file type error. And into this, well, let's define it first, and then you'll see what we take in a minute. Invalid fail. File. Oh, goodness. File type error. That was special. Sorry about that, folks. Okay, so let's open our errors module. And down here at the bottom, we can define invalid file type error. Okay, and this will be an error message, obviously. And what I want to do is, as usual, I'll paste in a doc string here. Grab that, and we'll just paste that in right there. Okay. So what we're going to do in the description, as you can see right here, is we're going to drop in the incorrect image type that they've submitted, and then we'll drop in the name of the section that they're trying to use. Okay? So let's go down here, def init, and remember we take in the image type, which is a string, and the section type, which we can also make a string. We'll just pass the proper name into the function. Okay. So let's call the superclass. Oh no, where did my pointer go? Superclass.init. And let's drop down. We'll say the title is equal to invalid file type. The description can be an F string. And actually, let's just copy this. Just like that. And we can copy the message text as well. Dump that in here. And finally, the solution text. And drop that in. Okay, so take a minute, pause the video, copy this down, or just listen to the dulcet tones of my voice while you copy it. Whatever works. But this is our file type error. Okay, so let's make sure we export it. Let's leave this open because we're going to be making another error here in a minute, but we can jump back over to images, and now our squiggly is gone. Okay, so what did we need to pass into this? The image type and the section type. Right, so we'll just pass image.content type for the image type, and for the section type, we can just pass in the section.propername. Okay, and that'll create our error. And now let's send our error, like we usually do, interaction.response.sendMessage. And the embed is equal to the error message, and we'll set ephemeral equal to true. And we can return from there. Okay, cool. Okay, so next up, we need to do some checks against our additional images section. Okay, because first off, we are only allowing 10 additional images. Because the link text in an image, in addition to the caption text, counts against our profile length limit. Okay, just because the link text has been shortened to the caption that our user is going to provide, it doesn't mean that the length of the embed doesn't consider the underlying link to that text. So we want to check to see if our section type is an additional image. So what I actually want to do is if section is not section type.additional images, well, what we want to do is we want to say await interaction.response.defer. Okay? Now what this is saying is that we need to do a calculation, we need to perform an action, we need to do something that's going to take more than the 3-second response window for your command. Okay, so each slash command has a very brief window of time in which you can acknowledge the interaction. Otherwise, you get an interaction failed message. So what we're doing here is we're acknowledging that that interaction has happened, but we need to wait. Just hang on, Discord. We're doing some stuff. We'll be right back with you. Okay? So that's what's happening here. Because if we're submitting a thumbnail or a URL, we can go directly to the image dump stage. We can go directly to saving it. However, if we have an additional image, so if else, or not if else, excuse me, just else, we're going to check and see if there's 10 additional images already. Because if there is, they can't add it. Okay, so if the length of self.additional equals 10, it can't be greater than 10 because we're stopping it here and users can only submit one attachment at a time. So if the length of self.additional equals 10, then we need to generate an error, and we'll call this too many images. Okay, and really quickly, let's go ahead and just copy the send behavior here, and then let's define our error. So we'll go back into the errors module. I'll export this, too many images, just so we don't have to scroll back up. And we'll go down here, class too many images, which is an error message. And let me grab my docstring. There we go. Okay, so this one's pretty simple. We'll go def init. It doesn't take any parameters, and then we can call the superclass here. Super.init. Okay. Title is going to be too many images. Actually, let's say image maximum reached. There we go. That's a little more descriptive. Okay. So, and we don't need a description. Notice that it's blank. So we can just skip the description and go straight to the message. And let's just copy this. You already have the maximum number of 10 additional images. And we'll also paste in the solution. Sorry, I can't add any more because of formatting restrictions. Sad face. Because we want to, remember, give our bot a little bit of personality. We're trying to make this a fun experience for the user. Okay, and error messages are just inherently not fun. So if we put a sad face, at least it's something kind of cute that'll make the user, smile perhaps. Or just more frustrated that they have an error. Who knows? All right, so back in our images class, the squiggly's gone, so we're in business there. And then if we haven't returned here, so if the user has space for additional images, we want to jump down and say caption equals, and we're going to create a function to get the caption because there are going to be multiple instances under which we want to get that information, like when we edit it, for instance. Okay, so we're going to say caption equals await self.getCaption, and we'll pass in the interaction because we'll ultimately be sending a modal from that function. Too many captions. There we go. Okay, and we'll define this in a minute, but this has to do with UI. And like I said, I want to come back to the UI in a little bit. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to say the image URL because we're going to dump this image into our resource server so that there's always that permalink to it, right? So we want to say await interaction.client.dump image. And we're going to pass in the image we want to dump. Okay. Now, we haven't used interaction.client before. And what this is going to do, in the PyCord library, the client the client attribute of the interaction is a basic Discord client. Okay, so we can't necessarily add the dump image to the Discord client. But the client is also our bot, okay? So if we go into the bot class, we can add a dump image function in here, and then we always have access to it, okay? So right here above getFrog, I want to say async def dump image. Okay, and this is going to take in the image that we want to dump, which is an attachment, and it's going to return a string. And this string value is going to be the jump URL to the image. Okay, so let's import attachment from Discord. And then we'll drop down. And what do we want to do? Well, the logic here is actually pretty straightforward. So the first thing I need to do is I need to convert our attachment to a sendable file. Okay, but luckily there's a function for that in a library. So we can say image.toFile, just like that. And now we have a sendable file. Okay, so let's say post. Well, where are we posting it to exactly? Well, let's go back in here to our resource server. And as you can see, I have an image void here. And clearly I have a bunch of test images that I was testing this particular function with earlier. But I'm scared to scroll up because there may be some not safe for work stuff. But you can see all of these images have been stored here automatically as I've uploaded them to the bot during the course of testing. And therefore, we're always going to have a permalink to the image. So essentially, it's like saving an asset to the computer. But since we don't have that ability, we're being kind of hacky. But I like it. It's a good solution. Okay, so in your resource server, go ahead and create an image void, and then we're going to copy, we're going to copy the ID to the image void. So let me just do that from my main account here. All right, and then we're going to go back into our bot class, and up here, under self.frogguilds, I want to say self.imagedump. And this is going to be an optional text channel, okay? Because that's ultimately what we have over here in Discord. This is just a text channel that we're uploading a bunch of images to. Simple, right? So let's import those from their respective modules. Okay, and then we're going to set this equal to none at the time of instantiation. Okay, so before we go into the next step, let's finish our dump image. Okay, so we're going to say await self.imagedump.send, and the file is equal to the file that we've created. And then all we need to do is return post.attachments sub0.jump URL, .url, just regular URL. Okay, and that's all we need for dump image. Simple, easy. So the issue now is that we have no logic loading our image dump. Okay, and then later on we may add a global error channel. In here you can see that I have one here, and I haven't actually used it yet, but perhaps this is something that we could add in a few videos. So, but we need logic to load this when the bot starts up. So what I actually want to do is I want to go over to our cogs, and I want to make a new Python file called dunder internal. Okay, and this is going to be a cog that literally handles our load logic. All right, so we're not going to make any slash commands. This is just going to have access to the cog and its listeners. Okay, so let's do our typical imports. This one we can have future in it, from future import annotations. From Discord, all we need for this is cog. Okay, from typing, all we need is type checking. And then I'll just give you the other ones because we'll need these in a little bit. So from classes.guild, import guild data. And from utilities, import star. Oh, we just need assert database structure. So let's just do that. And then if we're type checking, we need to say from classes.bot, import frogbot. Okay, so those are all the imports we need. It's pretty short, so I just wanted to give them to you in advance. So as we've done with all the rest of our cogs, let's start by defining the actual cog itself and then the setup function that's going to be the entry point into the bot. So this is just going to be internal, and it's going to be a cog. And for init, it's the same as the rest of them. So we're going to take a bot, which is frogbot, and we'll say self.bot, which is a frogbot, equals the bot that we've passed in. Okay. And then for our setup function, remember this is outside of the cog. This is the very bottom outside the cog. Def setup, it's going to take in a bot, which is a frogbot, with no return. And all we're going to do is say bot.addCog internal and pass in the bot. Cool. All right, so now we have an internal cog, but what do we want to do here? Well, if we drop down into the middle here between the two functions, we're going to make an onReady listener. But the problem is we already have an onReady listener, right? We have it in our main file right here. Well, our main file should not be for an onReady listener. Okay, this clutters up the main file. So what I actually want to do is I want to go in here to internal, and we're going to start by making a listener, and then we're going to copy all that logic over from the main file. Okay, so I want to say @cog because we don't have the bot in this module in order to say @bot.event. So we can say @cog.listener, and then we pass in the name of the listener that we're going to be working with. Okay, and we'll just say async def onReady. That's simple enough. No parameters, no return. And let's go over to our main file and let's just yank all of this out of here like that. And let's dump it into the internal cog. Okay, and then let's just say self.bot for all the bot calls. Okay, and everything is still running smoothly. So what I want to do now is in the bot, we have this image dump. Okay, and I want to make a function that we're going to call in the onReady listener that's going to load this channel. Okay, so under load profiles, I'll make a new section here, and I want to say async def load frog channels. Why not? And no parameters, no return. And down here, we're going to say image dump because we may have other channels later, so let's always be specific. I want to try self.error, not self.error, self.image dump equals await self.fetch channel, and then we're going to put in the channel ID for our image dump. And personally, I don't have a problem hard coding the ID into this particular step because there's no other time when we need this ID, okay? And this should never change, okay? But what happens if the text channel is deleted? Well, we're going to get an error from the fetch channel message. Okay, so this is really important. We need this image dump channel for our bot to function, right? If we go back in here, we don't have any error logic for this. We are expecting an image URL. And so I just want to raise the error that we get here, okay? Because this is important enough that we need to shut off execution of the bot and figure out what's going on, okay? Because this is a vital channel. So that's what I want to do. We don't need to make a new error for that. It's just internal, so we can raise it directly. Okay, and then back here in our internal cog, I'm just going to say right up here above our database assertion, we're going to print fetching internal channels. And as you guessed it, we're going to say await self.bot.load frog channels. Okay, and that should load up our channels at startup. So we don't need to continuously call the fetch channel function whenever we're uploading a file to Discord. Okay, we'll always have a reference to that channel. So this is our onReady listener. It's all good, and we can close this for now. And we can also close our bot for now. So we still have a squiggly here. So what's going on? Well, a standard client, which is what's type hinted in the library, does not have the dump image function. Okay, but we know for a fact that our bot, the actual client that we've created, has this function. Okay, so we can just drop in a type ignore to make the squiggly go away. Okay, cool. So below this, I'm going to instantiate a blank message. Okay, and then in our next bit of logic, we're going to do an if-else block that looks at what our section is, and then we can change the message to match that section. Okay, so if section is section type.thumbnail, well, we're going to set the thumbnail property, equal to the image URL that we've received from the dump image function. Okay, and let's also set the message equal to your thumbnail image was updated successfully. Okay, But what if they've submitted the main image? So elif section is section type dot main image. Well, we want to say self.mainImage, the property, equals the image URL that we've received, and then our message is going to be equal to your main image was updated successfully. Okay, and finally, elif section is section type dot additional image, and we could very well say else, but I'm being explicit here because it's more clear what's happening, okay? Because else catches everything. This one only catches this specific type, which is just more clear. So if it's additional images, we want to say self.additional.append, and we're going to make a new additional image. Okay, and we're going to have a function in our additional images called new, and we'll look at this in a second, but the new function is going to have the database storage logic implicit within the function. Okay, so into the function, I want to pass the ID of the profile, so self.parent.id, and then I also want to pass in the image URL that we've received and the caption that the user has submitted. But the problem is the caption might not be set, right? But what we're doing here is we're checking to see else if the section is section type.additional images. So we can even say elif section is section type, is section type.additional images, just to be more clear. But that does get a little confusing with the previous statement, which is why I've decided to go with an else statement here. Okay? So as long as this is additional images, we're grabbing a caption. So this squiggly is not important. Okay, so let's jump over to our additional image and we'll write this new function here. Okay, so I believe we made additional images all the way at the top. And under our init, let's define a class method, and it'll be called new. And into this, we're going to, and let's make sure we type the class. So that's type AI, which we haven't defined yet. So let's go up here next to our other type variable and say AI equals typevar, AI in quotes, and bound equals additional image. Okay? Very cool. Now, into our new class method, we want to take the parent ID, because we don't necessarily need a reference to the parent profile, since all of these are going to be in a list of something that's already attached to the parent profile, and we don't really need to reach outside of the additional image for anything. Okay, so this is going to be a string. This is going to take the URL of the additional image, which is also going to be a string, and it's going to take the caption, which is an optional string. Okay, and it's going to return to us an additional image, which is AI. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is get the image ID. Okay, we need to generate a new one and then save that into the database. Okay, but I don't want to make a new database record from my additional image class. Okay, let's go into our database module and make a new function for that. And we'll just do it right down here at the bottom. And we'll say def new additional image. And into this, we're going to take the profile ID, which is a string, the URL, I think you see where we're going here, and the caption, which is optional string. And this is going to return to us the string ID of the new additional image. Okay, so let's make that really fast. Let's say the image ID equals uuid.uuid4. Okay, quite honestly, I don't know what the other ones do, but 4 is the one that we're looking for. Okay, and then .hex is going to give us the actual string representation. Okay, so let's go ahead and commit this to the database now that we have all of the information that we need for our additional images table. Okay, because all we need is the profile ID, image ID, URL, and caption, which we have here. So let's say C equals dbconnection.cursor, cursor, and then C.execute, insert into ADDL images, And then in parentheses, profile ID, image ID, URL, and caption. And then let's drop down and say values and 4%s signs for variables. And then let's drop down here and we'll make a tuple of the variables to format in. So the profile ID, the image ID, the URL, and the caption. Okay? Then down here below the SQL command, let's say dbconnection.commit, and then we will close our cursor. And we return the image ID at the end. Very nice. Okay, so let's export this in all. And then over here in images, since we have everything imported from our utilities, we should just be able to say image ID equals new additional image. Okay, and then of course we need the profile ID, which is the parent ID, the URL, and the caption, like that. And let's use the same behavior that we've been using in our other classes to create this one. So self equals cls.dunderNew, and then drop in the class there. We'll say self.id equals the image ID, self.URL equals the URL, and self.caption underscore caption equals the caption that we've passed in. Okay, and let's just return the self when we're done. Okay, cool. And you know what? While we're here, let's make a property to expose that caption. Okay, so we'll say property def caption with no underscore. This will return an optional string. And then we just want to return self.caption or ns as usual. And down here, we're going to say @caption.setter def caption self. It's going to take in a value, which is going to be an optional string and has no return. Okay, and we're going to say self.caption equals the value, self.update. Okay, and since this is not a profile section, a proper profile section class, we don't have the update method predefined for us. So let's go ahead and just define that now really fast. So here we'll go ahead and define update with no parameters and no return. And we'll do the typical behavior. So I'll narrate it, but I won't really explain it. C equals dbconnection.cursor, c.execute, update additional images, set caption equal to %s where image ID equals %s. And then in the tuple below, self.caption and self.id. dbconnection.close and c.close as well. I'm sorry, dbconnection.commit and then c.close. Okay, nifty. Now, here's the thing about our additional images. We're going to allow the user to remove additional images, right? If they decide this no longer applies, or they want to change something or put a different image on there, then they need to be able to remove it. And so that means we need a way to delete the record from the database, right? Anything else, all the other profile attributes have solid records in the database. Like that profile ID is never going to be deleted. Okay, but there's no need to keep information on images that the user has deleted. So up above the update, what I want to do is I want to define a delete function as well, which is not going to take any parameters and has no return. And here it's going to be the same behavior as our update, except now it's going to delete the record. So C equals dbconnection.cursor, c.execute, and we can even do this on one line, delete from additional images where image ID equals %s. So if we don't say delete anything, it's going to delete the particular record that we're talking about, the whole record. And then we just need to say self.id in the tuple there. Okay, so down here we're going to say dbconnection.commit, c.close, and we can return. Okay. So we'll call this later when dealing with the delete button UI element, but since we were working on SQL commands, I wanted to go ahead and take care of that as well. Okay, so that concludes the setup of our images class and our additional images, and we even have our function to add an image. Okay, so let's try adding the image now. So jump into Discord. First thing I want to do is go back and start our bot. That would be good. All right, excellent. Now let's first start by running our images command to make sure that the status message still appears. Okay, looking good. This is exactly what we wanted. So that's good. And we have no errors. Also very good. Now let's go ahead and try running our add image command and see how long it takes us to get an error. Okay, so the field, as you can see, here are the options that we specified in the command. And let's see if we can add our thumbnail. Okay, we'll just grab this one. Okay, and then see how Frogbot is thinking. That means that this interaction has been deferred. Okay, so that's what we did in the handle image function. But it's deferred for a little bit long. So let's jump back over to our code. Interesting. Okay, so we don't have an error. So let's see what's going on in the handle image function, okay? Okay, it would help if we finished the handle image function. So that's on me, ADHD getting the better of me here. So let's drop down and finish this off. We just need to create a status message, a success embed, and send that back to the user to create the follow-up response to the interaction. Okay, so let's say confirm equals self.status, but let's go ahead and change the title and the description. Okay, so confirm dot title, not dot thumbnail, title equals success. And confirm dot description equals the message that we have defined up above. Okay, and we also need to add one for the additional image. So let's say message for the additional image equals a new additional image was added to your profile. Okay, cool. So we're going to add a view onto this as well, but since we haven't defined one yet, I'll leave it out. And let's just say await interaction.followup, because remember, the deferral was our initial response. So now we need to do a follow-up dot send, and then the embed is equal to confirm. We'll add the view in here later, but otherwise we're good with this function. So now let's start our bot and see how it works. Okay. So unfortunately it's still deferred, but we're just going to ignore that. So let's try our add image again. Okay, so here's the thumbnail. Let's attach a file. We'll grab this guy. And there we go. So you can see that it resent the status message, but it has the new image. Now the issue is that this status message up here is still present. Like, this might be confusing to the user. Like, why is there one here with no image and why is there one here with an image? Remember, we're talking about users here and they're not exactly intuitive. So once we get going with the UI elements, which will be the next video, we're going to look at how to delete this previous message when a new one is spawned. Okay? But for now, let's try the main image. So we'll go main image. What can we add here? Let's add this. Okay, so it's deferred because it's downloading the file and then it's re-uploading that to the resource server. Okay, it looks like that worked as well. So you can see here in bot resources, these are the images that we just did, that we just uploaded. Okay, very cool, right? All right, and we can't add any additional images yet because it's going to be wanting a caption, right? Because we're trying to capture a caption, but we don't have the get caption function because we don't have a modal to capture it with yet. So we can't check that. But the behavior for these two images is working exactly as we wanted it, so give yourselves a pat on the back. Okay, so I'm going to end the video here for now. The next video is going to be us looking at the UI elements for our images class, and then after that we can finally start compiling the profile and putting it all together, which is my favorite part. So hey, I appreciate everybody watching. Hopefully you're having a good time, and yeah, we'll see you next time.